The rain didn't fall so much as it threw itself against the world, a solid sheet of water that turned the highway into a black, shimmering ribbon. Leo's wipers, arthritic and old, fought a losing battle. His phone had given up its ghost an hour ago, and the needle on his gas gauge had been hovering on E for what felt like a lifetime. So when he saw the sign Gus's Gas leaning precariously over a single, antiquated pump, it felt less like a choice and more like a reprieve. He pulled his beat-up sedan under the flickering halo of the station's lone overhead light, the building itself a dark silhouette against the storm-racked night. It looked closed, forgotten, a relic from a time before interstate travel. But the pump was there. Leo took a deep breath, shoved the car door open against the wind, and made a frantic, soaking dash for the building's entrance. The door, surprisingly, was unlocked. A small bell, its chime muffled by dust and age, tinkled as he stepped inside. The air was thick and stale, smelling of old motor oil and damp concrete. A single, low-wattage bulb behind the counter cast a jaundiced glow over a display of fossilized beef jerky and maps that likely still showed the Soviet Union. The place was a time capsule. "Hello?" Leo called out, his voice swallowed by the oppressive silence and the drumming of rain on the roof. "Anyone here? I just need to pay for gas." No answer. He shuffled further in, water pooling from his jacket onto the grimy linoleum. He peered behind the counter. Nothing but shadows. Then he saw it. A small, handwritten note, propped against the ancient cash register. "Out back. Pump is on. Leave cash." Leo fumbled in his wallet, pulling out a damp 20 and a 10. He placed them under the note, the act feeling strangely formal, like leaving an offering. A shiver, entirely separate from the cold, traced a path down his spine. He was suddenly, acutely aware of how alone he was. How isolated. How the only sound was the storm, a roaring giant shaking the flimsy walls of this forgotten place. He turned to leave, his hand reaching for the door handle, when the bell above the door didn't just tinkle, it gave a sharp, frantic jangle. The wind. He pulled. The door didn't budge. He pulled again, putting his shoulder into it. It was locked. Or stuck. He rattled the handle, panic beginning to bloom in his chest like a cold, dark flower. No, no, no. A soft, scraping sound came from the back of the store. From the storeroom behind the counter. Leo froze, his breath catching in his throat. It wasn't the wind. It was too deliberate. A slow, grinding drag, like something heavy being pulled across concrete. "Hello," he called again, his voice a reedy whisper now. The scraping stopped. Silence, deeper and more profound than before, rushed in to fill the void. The rain seemed to hold its breath. Then, a figure emerged from the storeroom doorway. It was tall, unnaturally so, and thin, its limbs seeming to fold and unfold in ways that defied logic. It was dressed in dark, sodden coveralls, and its face was completely obscured by a featureless, off-white mask, the kind a painter might use, but blank. No eye holes, no mouth. Just a smooth, empty plane that seemed to absorb the weak light. It didn't speak. It didn't run. It simply stood there, a statue of silent menace, one hand holding a long, wicked-looking tire iron that dripped with a dark, viscous fluid onto the floor. Drip. 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 Leo's mind screamed. He stumbled back, his hip hitting a display rack of oil cans, sending them clattering to the floor. The sound was like a gunshot in the silence. The thing in the mask took a step forward. Its movement was utterly silent. The storm outside was its symphony, its own actions were its secret. "Stay back!" Leo yelled, grabbing a glass bottle of antifreeze and hurling it. It missed by a foot, shattering against the wall. The figure didn't even flinch. It just kept advancing, a slow, inevitable tide. Leo turned and ran, not for the jammed front door, but deeper into the store, toward a door marked restroom. He slammed his shoulder against it, and it gave way, the lock splintering. He fell into the small, filthy room and scrambled to shove a rusty metal trash bin under the doorknob, his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. He was panting, crouched in the dark, the only light coming from under the door. He listened. Nothing but the rain. Then, a shadow fell across the thin line of light. It stood there, just outside. Leo held his breath, pressing himself against the cold tiles of the wall. The doorknob began to turn. Slowly. Deliberately. The trash bin rattled. Then it stopped. Leo waited, seconds stretching into agonizing minutes. Had it given up? Had it gone? A new sound started. A soft, wet scraping. It was coming from the other side of the door, at about chest height. Leo stared, uncomprehending, as a dark, wet line began to appear on the painted wood of the door. It moved in a slow, deliberate circle. It was tracing something. A shape. A smile. The scraping stopped. The shadow under the door vanished. Leo stayed there, trembling, for what felt like an eternity. The silence was back, broken only by the relentless rain. Cautiously, ever so slowly, he stood up. He had to get out. He had to try the front door again. He quietly moved the trash bin and, with a shaking hand, turned the broken lock and pulled the door open a crack. The store was empty. The figure was gone. He let out a shuddering sob of relief and crept out, his eyes darting around the shadows. He had to get to his car. He had to get out of here. He rushed to the front door and pulled. It swung open easily this time, the bell giving a cheerful, mocking ring. The rain soaked him instantly, but it felt like freedom. He sprinted for his car, his keys already in his hand. He fumbled with the lock, yanked the door open, and threw himself inside, slamming it shut and hitting the locks. Safe. He was safe. He leaned his head back against the seat, eyes closed, trying to calm his racing heart. He just needed to start the car. Just needed to get back on the road. He opened his eyes. And saw it. Reflected in the rearview mirror, sitting perfectly still in his back seat, was the mask. Blank. Featureless. Silent. Its head tilted, a gesture of pure, predatory curiosity. Leo's scream was lost in a clap of thunder as the tire iron swung forward from the darkness behind him. The world exploded in a single, final flash of pain, and the last thing he ever saw was that empty, smiling face he'd watched being carved, now staring back at him from the reflection, as the storm outside washed the gas station clean, forgotten by time, waiting for the next soul unlucky enough to stop.